Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML.
News Talk 1270 KIML. Don Carpenter Show. Welcome back to the program, and I do believe joining us on the phone right now, we should have Lana Harfoush from the Moving Picture Institute. Did I get your name right?
That's right, you did.
Okay, I didn't know if it was going to be Lana or Lana, but I took a guess, and I guess I got it right. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, I saw this story yesterday, and I will admit, I'll throw myself under the bus right now. I'm a huge Hunger Games fan, so that's how I actually was drawn to this. I saw, wow, Hunger Games won an award, because I think they got shafted in the Oscars, but that's another story. But so I read this story, and I figured, well, I think this is something that a lot of people listening would want to hear about. So welcome to the show. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the Moving Picture Institute first?
Absolutely. Well, the Moving Picture Institute is a nonprofit film organization, and our educational mission is to promote freedom through film. And we do that in a variety of ways. We create our own original media content, our own web series and things like that. And we support outside projects that fall within our mission, and we support filmmakers who want to tell stories about what freedom is and why it matters. And, of course, we have our Liberty and Film Awards, which are announced right before the Oscars each year.
Well, and of course, some of these movies are Oscar-nominated movies, and we'll get to the winners in just a second. But some of them are more mainstream movies, and it kind of gives, I think, a lot of people, especially in the liberty-oriented community and conservatives, they get down on Hollywood a lot, and there are movies out there that do provide a good message if you're looking for them. You just have to look sometimes, I think.
I think that's right, and I think that's why our awards are so important, because we do draw those messages and those important principles out of mainstream films. And we also highlight the occasional movie that really misses the mark, so people don't start taking that as something that they should inform their views about society and things like that. So we think it's a very important exercise that really injects a conversation about freedom, about liberty, into those dinner conversations that families are having all around the country as the Oscars approach. Well,
absolutely. And I do like that you have the dishonorable mention, and I will say I would have picked the same one, by the way. We'll get to that in a second, too. So how did you pick the winners this year?
So we spent about the last month or so taking nominations from our supporters and the general public. And once we, tally those votes and get everyone's input, we created our winners list based on that. So that's why we have a fan favorite. That's why we awarded Best Picture to the film that we did. It was a very, very strong win for our Best Picture winner.
Well, so why don't we start off with that? The Best Picture winner is Dallas Buyers Club. Tell us why you picked that one.
Sure. Well, in addition to the very strong public support from our supporters as a nonprofit, we thought that it was a great film that not just received a lot of critical acclaim, but made people think about the role of government intervention in society and how it actually affects people's lives. So if you haven't seen it, it tells a story about an AIDS patient who's forced to defy a regulatory agency, the FDA, to get the treatment he and others need to survive. And the main character, played by Matthew McConaughey, is told he only has a very short time to live, and he can't even get the medications he needs that might prolong his life because they're not yet approved by the FDA. They're just in the trial stages. So he goes all the way to Mexico just to get treatment. He's on his deathbed, life or death situation, goes to Mexico, realizes that his health is improving and that he could buy those drugs that were saving his life and sell them in bulk in a buyer's club kind of business venture scenario. So that's what he does. He's not a very likable character at the beginning of the film. He's got a lot of problems. He's not very tolerant of other people. And then he realizes he can create this profit through this venture and create a huge social good. He's saving people's lives, and the government's getting in the way of that. And it's not something that someone made up that could happen if we're not vigilant about defending our rights. It's something that did happen. It's based on a true story. And oh, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was just going to say, and Matthew McConaughey is just amazing in the movie. I mean, he's probably my pick on Sunday for Best Actor. But I didn't mean to interrupt you there. But yeah, I mean, it really does show how the FDA gets in the way sometimes of progress.
Absolutely. You see the interactions between him and the doctors that have to follow the laws. I mean, it's sort of an awful situation that the doctors are put in. He develops a friendship with Jennifer Garner that her character that it shows. She feels very, very stressed out by this, very caught in a rough situation because she would love to help her patients. She's a very, very she has a very close friendship with her patients, and she can't give them what they need or even try out to see what will work, these drugs that the FDA won't allow to go forward. And you understand why that happens in a regulatory perspective, because they will be in a lot of trouble if people die on their watch. And yet, the irony is people were dying because they couldn't move forward. So it's just a really interesting film that, promotes entrepreneurship, for one, and social tolerance, but it also opposes overbearing government regulation. And the fact it's gained so much critical acclaim, the fact that it's up for Best Picture, is a really great sign because it shows people are interested in stories about freedom. Well,
and it really, and it's even, I mean, on all of those levels, it's great, but it's just a well-made movie too. So it's definitely,
it really is.
It's definitely worth checking out. And I do like that you obviously, since you're going by the stories in the movies, you don't pick Best Actor and Best Actress. You actually pick characters, which is really great. And of course, we'll start off with Best Female Character, Katniss Everdeen from The Hunger Games, Catching Fire. And I get crap from a lot of my friends when I tell them you need to read the Hunger Games books, you need to see the movies. They do have an important message. So tell us why you picked Katniss.
Well, I completely agree. They do have an important message, and it's something that people of all ages can identify with and enjoy. Some people wrongly assume that these books can only be enjoyed, that the films can only be enjoyed by, young people, but really, they can be enjoyed by anyone because of those powerful messages. And as you know, as a fan of The Hunger Games, you know that the film really shows how a powerful central government uses fear and coercion to control its citizens. And Katniss is on a mission, basically, for self-preservation, to save herself and her family, and to have some sort of semblance and freedom in a essentially totalitarian environment. So she's struggling with this government entity, the Capitol, as the whole premise of the series is that they have these Hunger Games where you have to fight to the death, two tributes from each district. And that's a reminder to those districts, to those regions the Capitol controls, that they'd better not have any uprisings, because that's how the Hunger Games started, as a way to remind them of what will happen if there are future attempts to regain their individual rights and things like that. So it was a really great story. She's one person, but she's making such a huge difference, and it really does illustrate the danger of unchecked, unaccountable political power.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I think the great thing about the books and the movies, they're targeted towards a younger reader, but, adults can enjoy these as well. But it also is a great way to introduce these concepts to younger people, and instead of being bombarded all the time by, you need the government to help you with this, you need the government to help you with that. It does show what happens when people get too complacent and just let the government take everything over.
That's really true. And because they are based in this fantasy world, it's easy to deal with a lot of issues that might turn people off otherwise. Talking about individualism in these ways, you can have this different environment, this fictional environment, and it really speaks to a lot of issues that people experience all around the world on some level.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it doesn't beat you over the head with the message either. It's not preachy in any way. So I mean, it's a good way for kids to kind of get this message. And I could talk to you for an hour about the Hunger Games, but I do want to get through all of these. The best male character is Superman in Man of Steel, which another movie that I really liked. I mean, I've always been a Superman fan, and I was kind of disappointed with the last Superman movie. But Superman in this movie, he's not exactly friends with we'll just say the government doesn't trust Superman. And so tell us a little bit about why you picked Superman.
Right. Well, so as you know, he escaped his authoritarian planet as a baby, and he's fighting for freedom and individualism on Earth, even when he has to combat the U.S. government, which, as you mentioned, is not a fan of him, and their own surveillance apparatus. So this hunt for Superman and, just trying to deal with all kinds of complex issues that touch on our privacy rights and things like that. That was really what brought that character to the forefront for us this year.
Well, yeah, and the scene where he brings the drone back to the military guys, I thought that was kind of it was humorous. He's like, oh, I found this drone, but I mean, it kind of shows that they don't even trust Superman of all people.
That's right.
Yeah, so of course the fan favorite. Now I haven't seen this one, but I mean I know the premise and I know a little bit about the movie. Your fan favorite is 12 Years a Slave, which of course is probably going to win a lot of awards on Sunday. But tell us why you picked that one.
Right, I'm sure it will win a lot of awards on Sunday. It's already won, a lot of really prestigious awards during this award season. But the reason it was our fan favorite, a lot of people brought this to our attention because it's one of the most powerful films ever made about the brutal and dehumanizing institution of slavery. And it reminds us of the importance of our cherished values of individual freedom, of human dignity, of human respect. And it's based on a true story of Solomon Northup. He's a free man who was kidnapped and held in captivity as a slave. And the whole movie is about his struggle to survive and regain his precious freedom.
Well, yeah, and I think people are, even all this time later, I think some people are still a little bit uncomfortable with watching movies with the subject matter. But it's something. If people don't remember it, I mean, it could happen again.
I couldn't agree more. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it, as people always say, and that's one reason this story and other films about slavery or films about the Holocaust, things real human atrocities throughout history, that's why they're important. Even if the subject matter is a little disconcerting, that's good. We want these subject matters to be disconcerting because the second you can watch it and not flinch and not worry that there's something in you as a human being that's stirring, that's this is a very wrong and evil thing, then we have to worry if you don't feel that way. So these films do remind us about how important human freedom really is and why we should be very vigilant in protecting it for ourselves and for others.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And kind of lightening things up. Now, this one, I've seen this movie and I enjoyed it, but I didn't really think about your take on this until I saw this, and then I was like, oh yeah, that is true. It just kind of clicked in my head when I saw this award. It's a movie called The World's End. It's a British comedy. Edgar Wright was the director. I mean, he's done a lot of great comedies. So why did you pick this movie as your best comedy?
Well, the reason The World's End won Best Comedy in our Liberty and Film Awards is not so much of anything that had to do with the beginning of the film. So, as you know, when you start out watching the film, it's just friends reuniting for a pub crawl in their British hometown, and really, all that seems fine and normal. But then, somewhere in the middle of the movie, you realize that everything is, I don't want to give too many spoilers here, but you realize there's another force at play, kind of a totalitarian alien-type regime that's been controlling a lot of people's actions, and they've been trying to make everything perfect in their minds in a centrally planned way. And so you see the friends stand up to this. There's a very poignant scene toward the end of the movie that it's a really strong statement about individualism triumphing over central planning, and there are great quotes like, "It's our basic human right to make mistakes." That's one line. This network of alien people trying to control everyone on Earth says, "You are children and you require guidance. There's no room for imperfection." And one of the main characters says, "Hey, Earth isn't perfect, and humans aren't perfect, and guess what? I'm not perfect." So the whole thing is just about individualism, about making your own choices and free will, and how, that's going to play into your own life goal and not what someone else is trying to build for you or says you should fit into. And so, it was a comedy. It was with a very kind of strange premise, but it had a great message in it at the end.
Oh, and I didn't even think about that when I was watching. Maybe I was just enjoying the comedy part too much. But you're absolutely right. I mean, it does give that message, and I'm gonna watch it again this weekend. By the way, now that
watch it with this in mind.
Yeah, now I'm gonna watch
Exactly.
it with that in mind, and of course, now we'll kind of wrap things up with this dishonorable mention. And like I said, this is the movie I would have picked. Elysium, which is a science fiction movie. The guy that did District 9 as the director. Tell us a little bit about Elysium.
Elysium portrays a dystopian future, I believe the year 2154, where the super wealthy are literally living on another planet from the poor. They live in a man-made space station that soars above the population of a ruined Earth, and everyone's poor and starving and ill and having an awful time of things on the ground. And people who live on this station have access to medical devices that can cure any illness or cure any injury while they watch people on Earth suffer, basically. So the whole film is touching on inequality, and the director suggests that the answer to this issue is class warfare and not economic freedom. So this is a problem from the Moving Picture Institute's perspective. Actually, one of our fellows, Andrew Heaton, who's a comedian, wrote a hilarious review of this film, saying, "At any given moment, I expected Jodie Foster to cackle and drink orphan tears out of a brandy snifter." And that's really the feeling you get when you watch this movie, just that, the wealthy are bad. They didn't earn their money. They're just sitting there, and they could press a button and save the world, but they don't because they're selfish. And that's not the right message. It's a very violent and beating you over the head type message, when in reality, let's say this situation was really happening. Not only would private charities almost certainly emerge, but you'd also have people realizing there's a huge market opportunity there. If you have a medical device that can cure anything, there's a way to make a profit by making that available to other people. So that's pretty much the reason that this film earned our dishonorable mention. Just a very bad portrayal of class warfare. It's already something our public discourse and our nation is discussing, and I don't think this film added anything productive to that discussion.
Well, and trust me, you're not the first one I've heard say this about Elysium, and I wanted to like it. I like District 9. I mean, District 9 was a little preachy, but it was an enjoyable film. But Elysium was it was 2 hours of just every cliche in the book. We'll just say.
Yeah, and I don't want to bash it too much because it did have a glimmer of light in various parts. There's certain things everyone can pretty much agree on in this film. That yes, the excessive use of drones are bad. We should not allow that. There were some comments on immigration reform that were really interesting and something that related to individual rights and human rights. But overall, the message was, the wealthy are bad. Economic freedom won't cure things. Only this, violent sort of situation will, and it just didn't really add much to the public discourse. Yeah,
I think that's a good way to put it. And we're actually almost out of time here, but I want to give you a chance to, if anybody wants to check you guys out, and I mean you have you have all kinds of films that you produce as well. And
that's right.
Yeah, so if anybody wants to check you guys out, where can they find you?
If you just go to movingpictureinstitute.org, then you can check out our website, all of our films, and a lot of our fellows' films, their projects. We have a lot of really great documentaries and narrative fiction pieces that people would probably love, your listeners would love to learn about. And if you want to review the Liberty and Film Awards list again, just go to libertyandfilm.org, and it will take you right there.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Lana, for calling in. It's been great, and I'm sure we'll get a chance to talk to you again next year, and we'll hopefully Hunger Games' next movie will be on the list next year as well.
Yeah, we'll be watching and see how it does.
Well, I will say the next one's a lot darker. I know it definitely is a lot darker. The Big Bad Capital does a lot of nasty stuff.
They really do, but I won't add any more spoilers than I have today. So thanks for having me.
Thanks a lot, Lana. And with that, we're going to take a short break. That was Lana Harfoush from the Moving Picture Institute. That was a lot of fun. And with that, we're going to take a short break. We'll be right back. We'll do a little Steve Store. News Talk 1270 KIML.
Hey, did you miss an interview? You want to stream the show live? Visit DonCarpenterRadio.com. Don Carpenter on News Talk 1270 KIML.